Well, hello. Here we are having a little Q&A session today and a little chat between two SERPA practitioners. I'll let Anna introduce herself, but my name's Irralee Andrzejowska. I'm a physiotherapist and SERPA practitioner, and I'm looking forward to chatting with Dr. Anna Smith here, who will introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a NHS GP, but I also run a private clinic in mind-body medicine. I'm a SERPA practitioner also, and very interested in how the mind and body work together, rather than we're not kind of cut off here with our mind and our body. They all interact and work together in illness and health.
Fantastic. And we've been having a little chat before we came live, and then we realized, oh, we better press the button and chat live as well, because we could probably chat all day about the mind and the body, and how we were talking about how some people are responsive to it and open to it, and some people aren't ready for it, and that just finding that happy medium of working with people when they're ready, or planting the seeds. And it's always very interesting to kind of see what's going on for someone, but them being in a position where they don't see it, maybe at the moment. Other people might sort of have realised it and come to us knowing that's what they need, but others are maybe completely unaware of it when we first make contact with them, which is what I find when I'm in my physical physio practice. Those are the uninitiated coming to me, so I have to work with them very differently to the people I work with online who are already in the mind-body space and have done some reading or this sort of thing. It's pitching it to the right audience, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I have the same issue in my NHS GP clinic. It's because they come to me with a physical symptom and they don't know why they have the physical symptom despite their investigations being normal. Or equally, I do some medical acupuncture, and I see a lot of people with a mind-body syndrome who don't realise, and so it's kind of approaching them and asking, do you mind if we have a chat about how the mind and body work together, and sometimes create symptoms. So yes, you have to tread quite carefully, and like we were saying earlier, Irralee, it can take someone 7 to 11 times to kind of actually hear this concept before they actually come on board and start working.
Yeah, I think we're initially scared of things we don't understand. When we get that cognitive dissonance, like, that don't make sense. I've never heard anyone else say that, or that it can be quite rattling, and we can become, I think, reflexly kind of defensive of that when we first hear it, and resist it. We don't like to think there's things we don't know. Perhaps maybe that's human nature. So at first we resist it, but then it can kind of seep in, and like you say, we might hear it from different angles, and we might start to open up a little bit of curiosity and ask some questions and go a bit exploring, and then when someone comes to us like that, we can, when they're ready, give them that information. I just first want to acknowledge the people who are joining us on this chat, and the idea is you can write any comments in the comment box, any questions, anything you want to say, or ask either of us. Please feel free to do that as we're chattering along. Something might come to you that you want to contribute, and we welcome that. So thank you. So yeah, do you notice there's the people who come for medical acupuncture, do you think they have a slightly different mindset to the people who come and see you as a GP, perhaps, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, because I think they're often coming to a practitioner and they want to be fixed.
Yes.
And so the concept that it might be, yes, acupuncture may work for this condition, but also if you start understanding the physiology of the body and the way the nervous system is responding to things, then that would also help.
Yes.
Alongside.
Yes, so I guess it's still that passive approach. Someone else is doing something to me. I don't have to actually understand or learn or take responsibility for what's happened in my body and learn how to work with that. But it gives you that great opportunity of being in their presence and dropping those little seeds and seeing who is ready to water them. Because they can't run away when you've got needles in you, can they? So they've got to listen to you.
Tricky.
But I think that's
I was thinking. I was just thinking about some books, some of the books that I would recommend to people. And obviously I do like Georgie Orfield's Chronic Pain. I also like a lot The Way Out by Alan Gordon.
Yes.
Both of those books, because they're fairly straightforward to read and understand the concept. But I just before we started, I got a couple of books down from my shelf, and then I'm just starting to read. Have you read I'm just reading this at the moment, Benjamin Fry's book. I heard him speak. I went to the Action Trauma Conference in Belfast just in a couple of months ago, and he was speaking. He's a really good speaker, and he's just written a book, The Invisible Lion, which is, you can see it, I should put it over here, which is all about the nervous system and how the nervous system responds to stress or gets stuck in a stress response, and that can lead to physical symptoms. So I like that a lot. And the other one I actually like as well, which talks a lot around the nervous system and stress, is sorry, I'm holding it wrong. Alex Howard's book, It's Not Your Fault. I don't know if you know that one.
I come across him on some summits and courses that he runs, but I've not read his book. It's Not Your Fault. Yes.
Again, it's written. Both of those are written for just the general public, and they say they're writing on the back of all the giants of Stephen Porges and everyone else. But they're writing quite a bit about the nervous system and how that has an effect on our health.
Yes, and I think the nervous system is that survival nervous system is a really good way to orientate patients, isn't it, towards their nervous system, and to appreciate that what's going on is this chronic state of fight and flight or freeze, and once they can become aware of that element of what's going on for them, then it seems more obvious that, I need techniques to work with calming my nervous system, and you can see the triggers which activate my nervous system, and you can identify the things that bring it back down. You can start to make the links between who or what situation makes it go up, or who or what makes it go down. And people can start to see things through a whole new lens when they look at the lens of the nervous system rather than the lens of the physical body part or symptom itself. I think it's a really important perceptual shift for patients to make and become curious about their nervous system. But we were talking earlier about how people aren't aware of them being in a stressed state and often will completely deny feeling stressed. And yet when we are observing them, they're obviously stressed, but they're completely unaware of it because they're so disconnected from their bodies. They're literally not feeling the stress. They're not feeling the tightness and the shortness of breath because they're right up in their head, and they're so busy, or they're so normalized it. You mentioned you saw a patient recently where that was the case.
Yes, exactly. And I think that we're not listening to our bodies in the same way anymore, because I think we're living in a very modern world where we're constantly distracted by phones, media, whatever it is going on in our lives. And I think therefore it's very easy to distract ourselves from actually how we're actually really feeling. And tuning in to our nervous system. What's it like today, or I don't know whether you do this, Irralee, I get people to put a polyvagal chart on their fridge or on their work desk or something, because that's for people who don't know, that's a lovely visual aid, I think, of the nervous system. So
Yes.
you've got, it's like a sort of bell chart, and it's got the green at the bottom, which is your calm. It's got your fight or flight, and then the top, it's got your freeze.
Mm.
And so I get people to check in at intervals in their day and say, okay, oh, I do ABC, like awareness. Where is your nervous system at this time?
Mm.
So, you know, for instance, my nervous system before we started the chat was a little bit into fight or flight. You know, I'm hoping at the end of the talk, it'll move down into calm again. Now, that's
Yeah.
a normal response to something that you have to do. But it's when we're constantly living in the state of fight or flight or freeze that we start getting more physical symptoms. And I think just actually having that check-in at regular times in your day is quite a good thing. And then when you
Yes.
are aware, if you're in fight or flight, maybe use something like breath work, because you've always got your breath work. You've got it in the supermarket. You can't leave it at home when you go on holiday or anything, you know, and just being aware and saying, right, I'll just take 60 seconds, you know, a minute out, and I'll just do some breath work to calm my nervous system.
Yes, and I think it's also important to acknowledge when we become aware, oh, I'm in an activated state, or I'm feeling some anxiety or fear or restlessness, or however we might describe it. But by kind of seeing it, then we've kind of detached ourselves a little bit from it, and we're looking at it as something that's not us. In a sense, it's something we're experiencing. And then we don't want to, we want to normalize that to feel some anxiety, for example, is a normal response to a perceived danger, and not shame ourselves for or judge ourselves for feeling like that. So that when we become aware that we're in an upset state, we don't want to then, you know, tell ourselves off and tell, you know, act as if that's wrong. We actually want to acknowledge, oh, I'm in a tender way. Oh, I'm feeling a bit like this, and kind of make it an opportunity to turn towards ourselves and go, oh, what do I need right now to feel more comfortable? And that's when, like say, breath work and grounding, or just tuning into a pleasant sensation in our body, or just something that feels really nice. And then we can feel that experience in our body. And like you say, we've become so hyper distracted and so mentalized that we've forgotten how to tune in and get the insight inside our body. And even that, how we feel in reaction to our symptoms. So if we kind of ask that, how do I feel about my shoulder pain, you know, and recognizing what comes up for us in our reactivity, which is our fight response towards.
That there's a couple of points you brought up there, Irralee, which are interesting. One was the, you know, not being upset that we feel, or cross with ourselves, or shaming ourselves about feeling anxious about things. And I often get people to name their anxiety. You know, if they're in a fight or flight or freeze, like name him. And like mine's called Bob. I name him Bob. So when Bob's there, I go, oh, hi Bob, you're here again. Okay, what's going on in my life? What's going on in my body? Okay, this is happening. All right, well, I could just take a bit of time out and, like you say, breath work, grounding, maybe self-compassion, making yourself a cup of tea, wrapping yourself in a blanket, holding yourself, just to calm it down. But treat him as a friend who's just trying to give you a message, rather than, oh my God, I feel anxious, and fear drives fear, obviously, which is not what you want. And the other thing is, sorry.
I was just going to expand on that, saying exactly the sensations that we're getting in our body are it's trying to get our attention. We want to collaborate with that and kind of, oh, what's going on, rather than trying to get rid of and shoot the messenger. Actually, we want to lean in and understand that our body isn't against us, our body's just trying to get our attention to come into the body. Our body's saying, come into me, I've got stuff to tell you. And we just keep avoiding it and go into our head or get busy or distracted. And it's like you say, Bob's your best friend. He's saying, hang on, there's something here you're not feeling, or not something you're not acting on, or something you're not looking after yourself or your boundaries or whatever it might be. But he's got some good information, and you just want to be able to say hello to him and tune into what's going on. And then you can find out and then act specifically on it. And sometimes you might just do the calming because it might be that's the situation. And other times you might have time to investigate and do the calming. It depends where you are and who you're with and what's going on. But sometimes you might not have the opportunity to have a chat with Bob, but you might just reassure him in that moment. And when you get a moment to yourself a bit later, you can kind of go back in and have a cup of tea with him then and find out what's going on. It creates a whole new thing. Yeah.
And I also think like depending how you're feeling depends what might work for you as well. You know, sometimes you can do breath work, but sometimes you're really so in fight or flight or anxious that actually movement might be better, you know, gentle movement or a walk or some yoga sort of stretches or something. I certainly have found, for me, I have done quite a bit of meditation over the last couple of years, but actually I've fallen back into doing what I call a mindful movement in the morning, which at the moment suits me better. And particularly if I'm a bit more stressed or anxious, I find the movement really helpful.
Yeah, like you say, you maybe need different things at different times in your life. And it's just like you say, trying something, seeing what works for you in that moment. And sometimes another technique might work better, and having that flexibility, isn't it? To just seeing how you just kind of tuning in and seeing how you respond. If it's having the desired effect, then it's good. There's lots of different ways in, isn't there? And some people like some things more than others, and that's okay. Yeah, it's finding that.
It was interesting. I was seeing a lady a few weeks ago, and there was some stress in her life, and then she had some other symptoms from that. And we were talking about this, about how to ground herself or calm her nervous system. And she suddenly went, oh my goodness, you know what? This all started, I used to do tapping. You know, emotional freedom technique. I don't know if people know that. You can look it up online. Nick Ortner does quite a bit, and whatever I'm sure you'll find him, where you tap in certain places on your body and sort of talk to yourself while you're tapping. And it's a very calming technique for many people. And I thought it was really interesting that she suddenly clicked and said, gosh, I used to do that. And that really helped. And I haven't done it for such a long time.
Yeah, I think we can forget. Yeah, that's right. Because of the busyness of life, you know, even things that have helped us, we can forget about. And maybe that's part of the brain also trying to protect us, trying to stop us going there. You know, the brain, maybe part of us doesn't want to remember that technique because it doesn't want us to feel those emotions or face those uncomfortable truths. And so a little mechanism would be to, let's just forget how to do that emotional work, and then we don't have to go there. The brain can be quite sneaky, and sometimes it's just distracting us because at the time in our life we might not have the capacity to go there. There might be things going on, and that our nervous system's always being protective, and it's got its own reasons for doing what it's doing when it's doing it. So I think we have to kind of honor and respect that it's always trying to look after us, rather than have the idea that our body's broken and it's against us and it's all going wrong, which, you know, if you've had all the medical checks then and they're all clear, then you know your body's sound. It's more the way you're driving the car. There's no sort of faulty parts. It's you're driving with your foot flat to the accelerator. And if you're used to driving really fast, then you say, there's nothing wrong. This is how I drive. but you don't acknowledge that, you're using up all the fuel and it's all a bit frantic and you don't know how to put the brakes on and or refuel. So it works for a certain period of time until you crash or you sort of realize that that mechanism isn't working anymore. Yeah. Every day.
And just like you take your car to the garage for it to be serviced, etc., we need to look after ourselves in that way. So we need to look at self-compassion, which isn't self-pity. It's actually caring for yourself and saying, you know what, I am a little bit tired today. I'm going to just pace my day. I'm going to plan my day in a slightly different way. I may decide to decline and say no to that invitation because it's not going to work so well for me at the moment. You may think about scheduling like a bit more therapy work if things aren't going well. Have, instead of doing a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening, you may say, actually, I'm going to do a little bit of lunchtime as well. And I'm not talking, we're all busy. I'm not talking of taking hours out of your day, just minutes. Really just taking a few minutes or going and having your cup of tea outside, breath work, walking around your garden or the road or, just something where you change the tempo of your day really, or the tempo of your nervous system.
Yes. I think sometimes we need to find little pockets of stillness, don't we? And in that stillness, something might rise up, something that's wanting to come forward, but because we're running away all the time, it doesn't have a chance to move through. And so sometimes just need that little bit of stillness to feel the contrast between foot flat to the floor and cruise mode, just to create a little contrast and for us to notice how it feels. And it might feel really uncomfortable at first to slow down if we're not used to going on cruise mode. But if we keep repeating it and be curious about it, we may start to find, this actually feels good. And how can I bring a little bit more of these little pockets of stillness into my frantic day? And it's not that we need to be on cruise mode all the time. There's times we do need to go fast and we've got deadlines and we've got pressure. But then the problem is when we're also applying that same speed to situations where we don't need to be going full throttle. We just need to identify, okay, now it's safe for me to take the pressure off and take a little bit of time out or whatever that might be. And sometimes the action could be that we're still and we're doing lots of mental activity. So we're not still in our mind. Our bodies might be still, but our mind is got the going at 100 miles an hour. So in that case, that's probably where it actually helps to move the body to bring stillness to the mind. So it can go one way or the other in a sense. Sometimes we're moving fast so that we don't feel our mind, and other times where our mind is moving too fast and we're not feeling our body. So different approaches according to the situation.
And the other thing maybe to also bring in here, I don't know, is the element of freeze. So some people, when they're chronically stressed or they've had stressful past situations, some people go into a more fight or flight type response with lots of physical symptoms. And some people might go either through that and into a freeze where they dissociate, they shut down, they feel hopeless, depressed, fatigued, all those symptoms. And sometimes, I don't know what you think about this, Irralee, sometimes I find for those people, gentle movement can be very helpful.
Oh, definitely.
I'm talking gentle, like like not, go on a 20-minute walk. I'm not talking that. I'm literally talking maybe just shaking their hands, moving their head around, tapping, very simple movements. What's your
Yes, I think that's right. I think when someone's in any sort of state, they've got to meet themselves where they're at. And if they're in a freeze state, they can't conceptualize suddenly jumping up and down and doing star jumps or something. It's too remote from where their starting point is. So yes, and the movement could be, yes, as simple as full of bigger breaths, because often people in freeze are barely breathing very, very shallowly, or they might even be holding their breath. So they're not even moving their breath. Their breath's not even moving. So they might start with the breath, they're moving like that. And yeah, any type of qigong or tai chi or yoga, or it doesn't have to be a formal movement, like you say. It could be just something very gentle, very, very simple, as the sort of next little mini step. And then when they've done a little bit of mobility, I don't know why I said it like that, bit of mobility, then that kind of opens up to do a little bit more. It's like a little expansion that can happen, but it has to happen in these baby steps, because if this freeze, which is a protective response, and you can't go out there because it would be too shocking, and you'll retreat again back into that freeze mode. And I think when they're in that freeze mode, it's disconnection, isn't it? So it's about trying to reconnect with the environment. So that's where sort of mindfulness, even if they have a cup of tea, and just really connect with the sensations of the tea, for example, so that they're out of their head and stuck here and into enjoying those very simple pleasures, which can just create that release of chemistry in the body, which just helps to lift them a little bit. And when you're a little bit more lifted, then something else opens up, and you think, oh, I feel like I could go outside now, or I feel like I could maybe say hello to someone in the street, or it's just trying to reconnect back into nature, people, support themselves. It's slow. I think you've got to be gentle there.
So like also I'd add in physical touch as well. It might be they just physically hug themselves, which you can put an arm under your arm and around here, and you might just stroke your arm, very simple things as well to release oxytocin. And all these things really, aren't they? They're bringing people into a slightly more safe, like you say, connected place, so they can then perhaps discharge some of their stress.
Yes, it's just trying to bring safety for them to be able to move out of that very protective mode of freeze. It's because of fear, and they're kind of locked away, and they're just trying to bring those little glimmers of safety so they can start to emerge out of the safe cave, if you like, and come back into connection. And when people can conceptualize it like that, I think it helps them come up with some ideas of how to move through. And I think people need to have them written down on like a sheet of what I need to do when I get like this, because when you're feeling like that, you don't really have access to the part of your brain which has all the wisdom in it. So if you've had a period where you've come out of it, and you can write down some pointers for yourself of things that you find helpful, so that if you feel like that, at least you could grab for that piece of paper as that sort of beacon of help and hope there, and reflect on what you might choose from that list, so you're not trying to work it out, because you can't work it out when you're in a state of fear like that.
That's a really good idea. Really good tip.
Anyway, they've got a few people joining us here, so if anyone wants to chip in with a comment, a question, a query, an opinion, anything, then please write in the comments box, and we will pick that up for sure.
One of the things I was thinking about is we're talking for people who just joined us about fight and flight and freeze, so a sort of more anxious state of the nervous system. But I like the definition of anxiety, which I read, which was the physical manifestation of unexpressed emotions. Which is then driving our nervous system into a state of fight or flight or freeze, fatigue, hopeless state. And I think that's a time when, again, like you were saying, sometimes you're in a place where you can explore that. What are the emotions? Do you use, because I think emotions, not many people can name many emotions. I certainly can't off the top of my head. You know, you think of happy, sad, joyful, angry. Um, so I often get people to use an emotions wheel, just to use it for the vocabulary side, even. To open up the words and go, oh, yes, it's frustrated. Oh, it's grief. Oh, it's, you know, and I think that's quite helpful. And then maybe, you know, using things like journaling, not about the situation, journaling about how you feel about the situation. I think is key.
Yes, I think getting out of the story, you need to have a little bit of the story to kind of, but they're not staying in the story of blame and victimization and frustration and helplessness, but actually use the story to then explore how it is making me feel and being able to express that. And being able to articulate what the emotion is. It can be really tricky if we're not used to connecting to our emotions, or we're used to holding them all in and you know, no, I don't have any of those emotions, I'm all okay. And equally, sometimes we don't know what the emotion is, and that doesn't matter. But if we can just feel the energy of the emotion, and it might be that there's a heaviness on our chest, or it could be a tightness in our gut, or a heat rising up, or a tingling in our hands. You know, these sensations are all emotions. And even if we can't tell what the emotion is, at least we can say to ourselves, there's an emotion here. And we can tune into it mindfully, which means we allow for that emotion. We're not trying to analyze it or judge it or get rid of it. We're watching it like a show on the stage. We can somatically track these emotional sensations and just get out of the way so that they will move through us, which they will. But the reason they stay stuck is because we resist them and judge them and try and fix them, or we're scared of them. But what is also interesting, I think, when people have got that feeling of anxiety and they've identified that, when they sit with the anxiety sensation mindfully, often that will then move and change. And then under the anxiety, like you were saying before, then an emotion will appear. And then some sadness will come up, or some anger or shame, or something will come up underneath that anxiety, because the anxiety is the lid trying to keep that emotional ball underwater. And we can either run away from the anxiety and try and fix it and distract, but it's just going to chase us, or we actually turn around 180 degrees and lean into it in a compassionate way, and what's going on here. And I find it really helpful for people to relate to whatever's going on emotionally, that it's their inner child that's distressed. So I think that helps to evoke the nurturing side. So if there's some anxiety or heaviness, we can think it's our inner child, she's crying out for us, and then we can turn more tenderly and go, I'm listening, what's going on, which is different to a punitive kind of, why am I feeling this, and you know, trying to fight it sort of thing. And I think when
often go on.
That's all.
I was just going to say about the inner child is thinking about some of the things Gabor Maté said is, you know, sometimes we need to go back to imagining ourselves at the age of 4 or 6 in that, you know, when did we first feel fear, or when did we first feel sad, and remembering ourselves. And most of us probably can have a picture of what we looked like at that age, or a certain dress we had, or trousers, or whatever it is, so we can kind of see ourselves. Some people I get to carry a photo of themselves as a child, and when things are overwhelming, think they can almost remind themselves, oh, hold on, this is my child speaking to me, like the child in the photo. I'm now the adult. I'm Anna, I'm the adult. I can look after my child. It's okay. I've got this.
And you can give the child part what maybe wasn't present for that trigger in the past, and then you can now unconditionally accept how she's feeling without judging her or shaming her for it, and allowing her to feel that, and that integrates that part. We've got a comment. That's exciting, isn't it? I'll just read it out from Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. She said she's reading John Sarno, and she understands the theory that the unconscious feelings can stimulate physical symptoms. But this knowledge hasn't helped me with my bad back that has been troubling me for over a year, and nothing particularly caused it. If the feelings are unconscious, how can we access them? So yes, Sarah, I think you've made the first step, if you like, of making that connection between the theory that emotions can create physical sensations in your body, which means that'll take away the fear and maybe the doubt and confusion about there being something broken and damaged in your body. So that's a really important step to make. But it rarely is it enough to just make the intellectual understanding that it's unconscious emotions causing my pain. We then have to actually be able to learn some emotional awareness or techniques that access it. And I think Dr. Sarno's books don't explain how to do the emotional work, whereas Georgie's book has got a good explanation on how to access those emotional content. But also the way out would access that through the somatic tracking aspect, somatically tracking into your symptoms in your back and getting to know them. So you're coming out of the intellectual understanding and then sinking into the body and getting to know the sensation, what's behind the sensation emotionally. And, either you can do that yourself or be guided with a practitioner as to how to access the emotional charge that's driving the physical symptom. What do you think, Anna?
Do you ever think, I think it's a very good question, because I think this is quite difficult. So yes, and as Irralee says, the fact you're reading John Sarno and understanding things is great, and that's the beginning. Sort of accessing unconscious emotions, I think we really need to get into our body. We need to get out of the thoughts in our head and into the physical sensations, and that might be your back pain, for instance. And then, like you say, Alan Gordon, showing that curiosity around maybe describing it. What color, what shape, does it move, is it still? But also start to think, what's the emotion that perhaps comes to the forefront? And just almost letting it come. Other things I sort of think are quite helpful for some, and it depends, for some people. So Nicole Sachs talks about journal speak, where she thinks if you are writing a journal to express emotions, that maybe you should do that for at least 20 minutes to actually get to the unconscious emotions there.
Yes.
So that's something else, journaling for a little bit longer than you might be. And the other one I think is quite helpful is putting on some music. So choosing music for how you feel that morning, because some mornings I wake up and I feel like, I've got the joys of spring, and other days I wake up and feel like I've got my world on my shoulders. And if you start asking yourself, how do I actually feel today? And then putting on, you go in a room, you shut the door, you close the curtains, no one sees you, okay? And you put on some music that suits the how you feel maybe, and you move to the music. And I think that often enables you to feel physical symptoms in a more profound way, and actually bring up emotions as well that you perhaps didn't know were there. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, what Sarah said is the big challenge for people to move from the intellectual understanding to making the emotional connection. It's a skill. It's something we've not been taught, and it can feel quite challenging at first. So I think you have to be patient and with yourself as you try and explore this emotional layer and realm, because it's just something we've shut away for so long. I think it can help to become about the emotional or the theme or the reason why the body's created the back pain when it did. You said it happened for no particular reason. So I'm feeling you're meaning it happened for no particular physical reason. But I think it can help to really think about what was going on for you around the time that the pain started, at home, in relationships, at work, in life in general. What was going on and what was the theme, because what puts us into symptoms is something that's triggering something that's of the same theme that happened to us as a child. So you're trying to make those sort of links between my nervous system has detected something here that I need protection from, and it's putting it in your back so that it's not in your conscious awareness, and therefore protecting you, believing that, you know, it's a bit too scary to face the truth of it. So it's hiding it in your back, if you like. So when you can kind of become more curious about that, that might help open up a reason which you then might journal about, and then, you know, you kind of excavating. You're trying to be like a Dora Explorer, with a sort of an attitude of what's going on for me here emotionally, and just opening up those channels. And it is a process of exploration, isn't it? It's not something you just click your fingers and it's done. It is about coming out of our heads. And I think a lot of us and society glorifies the mind so much that we try and solve everything at an intellectual level. And you can't solve an emotional problem with your intellect. You have to go into it in the body, into the emotions. That's the only way out. So, and that might be something quite different to how we're used to operating. If we're used to problem solving and using the mind for everything, we haven't exercised the emotional muscle very much yet. Yeah. But Georgie's book and The Way Out, Alan Gordon's book, might help give you a bit more information, Sarah, to expand what we're talking about. And they've both got techniques you can use there. So hopefully you're fine. But you're on the right track. You know, if you've read Dr. Sino, you're in the right direction. So, but it's a big ship to turn around when we suddenly become aware that, wow, this physical this sensation in my body, it is in my body, it's very physical, but it's not because I'm damaged or my body's broken, but I'm holding something in there. Our issues are in our tissues.
And like you say, having that curiosity around it rather than fear, trying to fix it, focusing on it, which is kind of making the back pain worse.
Yes.
You want to have the curiosity that Alan Gordon talks about, really.
Yes.
And getting out of your head and into your body.
Yes. And she said she's tried to find the reason, thinking to look at the books. And yeah, I mean, if the reason's not obvious at the moment, don't go over and over on that, because that's sort of keeping you away from going to the emotions as well by just staying in the exploration part. But just know that all of our symptoms, I believe, are not random. They all do happen for a reason. And it might not be obvious to us what the reason is at first because we're looking in the wrong place for it, or our mind is very defended against us, acknowledging it. So that's just the nature of the protective nervous system, isn't it? Sometimes it doesn't want us to admit to what's really going on. So yeah.
And maybe one of the other things that might be a little bit helpful for you, Sarah, is thinking that there's sort of, we need to feel safe in our bodies, and there's 3 basic human needs: to feel safe, connected, and loved. And sometimes if there's a sort of mismatch of that in your life, you may get physical symptoms as well because of the activated nervous system. And so sometimes it's about thinking, do I feel safe? And it's not so much safe, a lot of us are very lucky. We live in houses with roofs on, etc. It's not that kind of safety of having a house around us. It's safe in my body.
Yes,
is my nervous system safe? is, do I have real connection with one or two people, where I really can say, I can ask for help, I can say I'm struggling, and have real connection, authentic connection with someone else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have back pain because we're taking on the world, everybody's problems, and we're literally carrying too much, for example. It can be related to a survival personality trait, like over responsibility, or we've got perfectionism. So we're pushing ourselves really, really hard, and our back pain's trying to slow us down, or so that we might say no, or so that we can, offload something that we're feeling we should carry. So there's different reasons why we might have this back pain, for sure. And if you've read Dr. Sano and you understand that your physical symptoms aren't due to damage, it's also interesting to explore, well, that means it's safe to me to use my body. So maybe also be looking at, how am I not using my body? What am I avoiding physically because of my back pain? And realize I don't need to avoid that because I'm not causing harm, which might mean you start doing an activity and it will be uncomfortable at first, but knowing that it hurts, but it's not harmful, and being able to move into that gently without fear and attention on the body part. And that's something a practitioner can help you work through, that process of getting back to being confident to physically move your body when you've got a physical pain in there. It can be challenging to do that, but it is definitely possible when you're able to realize it's fear rather than damage causing that. Yeah, even if it's unconscious. So there's lots of different layers, isn't there, Anna? It's not just do this one thing and you're done.
Yeah.
The reason got symptoms is usually a culmination of fight and flight, freeze, personality situations, our beliefs, and where our attention is, and all of I like to say it's almost like it's an 8-digit code for a lock, and you kind of need to address all those digits to be free. And just doing one or two things, like just the knowledge, for example, might be one of those numbers. And there's lots of other digits to put into that equation to unlock the reason why the pain's there. So it's we're complicated in that sense, aren't we? Yeah.
One of the other things you alluded to, Irralee, was sometimes our personality types cause a sort of internal stress. We're perfectionists, over reliable, people pleasing, helping people all the time. And one of the things we do also need to think about is boundaries. So again, we keep ourselves safe. And interesting, I mentioned we need to feel safe, connected, and loved. 3 human basic needs. Alex Howard says we need to feel safe, connected, and have boundaries. His is 3rd. I think we need to know what triggers us. So maybe with your back pain, look at the ebbs and the flows and what seems to trigger it, because that'll be an emotional trigger, most likely, causing maybe more pain. And start thinking, so do I know my triggers? And therefore, can I add boundaries to my life to reduce the triggers? And you want to keep being aware it's you that creates the boundary. Don't expect anyone else to do it for you. So make it something you can talk to someone else to help you. So you could say to a partner or a friend, I feel that when this happens, my pain gets worse or I get more anxious, so they can understand. But you can also say, so therefore I am going to not do X or Y anymore.
Yes.
So you do create some healthy boundaries around those triggers in life.
And this is where our pain is trying to help us change our behaviors and our beliefs, which don't serve our well-being. And these behaviors and beliefs are something that we have learnt to be like because we've observed it from our parents or our caregivers, and we've developed these personalities to survive our situation the best we could and not create conflict in our life as a child. But then when we carry on those survival mechanisms as an adult, that's when they become too much, and because we've got other resources as an adult, and that's where the pain can come and teach us where we are not standing up for ourselves or speaking out or not saying no and putting those boundaries in, which is that healthy anger, isn't it? The healthy anger is that ability to protect. Healthy anger is ability to protect ourselves, our energy, our needs, our values. And if we can't, and we want to be able to communicate that so that we are protected, rather than just feeling like we've got to keep that all in and just do whatever's demanded out of us, or and that's when we might need a symptom to make us stop, because we're not saying no. Our body has to somehow create the situation where we have to say no, and we don't want our bodies to say no. We want to learn to be able to communicate that so our body doesn't have to do that for us. Hi, Shaheen. She's obviously working but popped in on a break. Nice for you to join us. Yeah, so
do you think with boundaries you also sometimes have to practice saying yes and no?
Yes.
And you can practice it yourself, can't you? You know, just like, so if someone's going to offer me my favorite meal, yes, I'm going to say yes. Yes, I want that favorite meal. And if someone's going to offer me some, you know, liver or something for dinner, I'm allowed to say no, I don't want it. And actually just practicing yourself at home, asking yourself simple questions, and saying a yes or no answer, so you get used to it.
And even people aren't maybe not used to actually sharing their opinion, because someone say, you know, what flavor ice cream you have, you might say, oh, I don't care, whichever one you want, you know, just always not really asking yourself what you want, and recognizing, yeah, I always, and we do it under the guise of, oh, I'm just going with the flow, I don't really mind. But really what you're doing is not honoring what, or not even asking yourself what you want in the first place. So kind of ignoring what you would like and just going with what everyone else would like for an easy life. But when we say yes to that situation, we're saying no to ourselves. So it's not that we can't say no, we're saying it to ourselves. We're saying no to our inner child. And so she's getting a bit upset about that and kicking off in our back or wherever she's kicking off about being ignored or not being asked or considered. Whereas everyone else out there we're looking after beautifully, but this person inside we've completely ignored, and now she's shouting at us. So, you know, that can be a perspective as well. And yeah, we can practice on the simple little decisions and then empower ourselves to employ that even in bigger situations in our life, ultimately. Yeah.
Or even practicing at home, like, you know, putting a string or something around you physically in a room, and then if there's certain people in your life you're struggling with, you know, imagine them coming over the string or the rope into your space. How does that make you feel? And then you might actually go, gosh, I didn't realize that person upset me as much. You know, you might actually start to say, oh no, I'd rather keep them a little bit at an arm's length. Whereas actually I do feel quite safe when I talk to that person. I feel connected with that person. I'll let them come into my space. So little things to practice with boundaries, because I think, like you say, Irralee, we're not necessarily authentic to ourselves. We like to go along with everyone else and you know, fit in.
Yes, and we're trying to keep the peace and not disturb anything, but by keeping the peace out there, we can create a war in here, and that's why we're suffering. So it's about choosing, I don't want to have the war in here anymore, so let's all, you know, come to peace a little bit more and know that people can cope with it when we say no, or, you know, it's okay. We're scared of our own emotions and thinking everyone else is scared. If we just bravely, you know, express ourselves, we might be surprised how empowering and good that can feel, even if the other person's not used to it and is taken a bit aback by you actually having an opinion. Or but you know, they'll get over that, and you can find that you've really connected more to yourself, and you'll feel the benefits of that for sure. Yeah. What have we got here? Someone's put a YouTube thing up there. I don't know what that is. A link. But yeah, so yeah, boundaries are a big thing about keeping us safe.
Yeah.
So we're almost at the end of the hour. We could chat for so much longer. It's been so nice to chat with you, Anna. Has anybody else got any final comments? Now's your time to pop them in there, and say whatever you would like to say. But any final thoughts, Anna, before we go?
I think with anxiety, get out of your head and into the physical sensations in your body, and be aware that those physical sensations are often underlying those are emotions. Yes. And be curious about it.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent. Yes. And my final thing to say is to know that the symptoms are maybe a part of you, a scared part of you, an inner child part of you, like trying to call your attention. So actually slow down, tune in, and be curious to kind of ask yourself what's going on under this sensation, what feelings are under there, and just have the spirit of exploration and compassion towards yourself as you try and negotiate what the nervous system is trying to communicate, so that you can bring it all back into balance again, ultimately. Yeah. Good. Well, we'll wrap up there then. And thank you for everyone who has joined us, and thank you, Anna, for joining me for the chat. It was great.
Thank you, Irralee, and thank you for everyone joining.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Bye.